All right, folks, this week we have an extra special episode. So as you may or may not know, I've been working tirelessly in the background here with the guys over the last few months, putting together a podcast that is super meaningful to myself and to many people across Canada called Breathless. It is CF Awareness Month this month in May. We're coming up to the end, and Breathless has one more episode left. If you haven't listened to it, please go check it out. I think you'd really enjoy it. And it means the world to me because it's a podcast in partnership with Cystic Fibrosis Canada, and we just talk about the state of CF. And a big part of it kind of surrounds my grappling with CF in this world where medication has literally just given me a second chance at life and all the confusing feelings that come with that. But what makes this episode of Sick Boy really special is that our guest today is the president and CEO of Cystic Fibrosis Canada, Kelly Grover. And Kelly she's one of those people that as soon as you meet them, you immediately just have so much respect for them as a human. Just a wonderful speaker, a very smart human, a very charismatic human. And I really, really love Kelly. Not just because she is the leader of an organization that has, played a role in keeping me alive, but also because she's just a fucking rad human. And so we have a beautiful conversation with Kelly. I hope you really enjoy that. But also, to tag onto that, we have a very special wrap-up segment at the end of the show where Brian Taylor and myself do a deep dive into one of the most prominent figures in the CF community that I feel like a lot of people today might not know of, depending on how old you are. Mr. Bob Flanagan. He's passed away. He died in 1996, but he was a prolific performance artist and a very controversial performance artist. And he used his cystic fibrosis as a huge part of his inspiration for his art. And he kind of contrasted it with his love for BDSM. And basically his art sort of showed how he utilized BDSM as a way to manage the mental turmoil and physical pain of his disease and kind of take back what pain meant to him in a way that turned it into pleasure. Super interesting guy and really hardcore. And it's a conversation at the end of the show that I hope you, in the very least, stick around for, or take a moment to pop on over to the end and listen to that segment. So again, big thank you to everyone who's taken a moment to check out Breathless. Again, it means the most to me and the guys here. And it was actually, we found it today. It was featured on Apple Podcasts, New and Noteworthy. So thank you to everyone who's followed and listened to help us get to that point. CF Awareness Month, do your part. Tell someone you know about CF, and maybe, hey, if you're in the Halifax area, we'll see you on the lawn bowling turf later this summer. Okay, enjoy, and this is our conversation with our good friend Kelly Grover. All right, I'll say this right off the top. So we're getting into the habit of introducing our guests in the sort of like intro of the show. Mm-hmm. As opposed to with our guest. But today, this is the thing that I was a little bit like, I don't know how this is going to go over. We actually had someone, through the grapevine, somebody found out that we were recording with you today. Mm-hmm. And they sent us a video because they were like, hey, I want to introduce Kelly.
I feel like I'm on frickin' Oprah, and next you're going to be like, and you get a car, and you get a car. So, all right.
So we might have to cut this because I don't know how this is going. I don't know how this is going to pan out. This could end up going.
This
really
could just
poorly.
go sideways because I hate attention. So we're really doing well already.
Just to say, it is kind of like Oprah, maybe more like Maury, because apparently it's a long lost relative.
Maybe more like Maury. So we had a paternity test done.
Yeah. Well, just so you know, those family members have surfaced on my dad's side. So let's do it.
Well, I'm excited. All the email said was family member would love to introduce Kelly if you don't mind. Sent a video. We just said fuck it. Let's not watch it. Let's just find out what happens.
Jeremie.
And so we're all gonna find out right now.
Just so you know, I am raising Jeremie at home. Okay, just telling you right now. Yeah. Okay.
All right. Let's introduce our guest today.
Hello there, everybody. It's me, Grover, your cute, lovable, furry blue friend from Sesame Street.
Wow.
Today, I am super duper excited because I get to introduce someone very, very special on the podcast. And guess what? She's not just any guest. She's my first cousin. Oh boy, I'm so excited.
Oh my God, I haven't seen Grover in so long. Oh my God, it's been decades.
I didn't know you guys were related. That's so crazy.
She's my cousin. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, monsters of all ages, please give a warm welcome to the wonderful, the spectacular, the one and only Kelly Grover!
Oh my God! He's running away again.
I thought Grover was his first name.
Oh my God!
It's his last name.
You guys are
Look at him. He's way back there. Oh my God! He's coming back.
Wait, listen. He's coughing.
Okay, let me tell you about a few things amazing about my dear cousin Kelly. Since 2018, she has been one of the biggest bosses, yes, the president and CEO of Cystic Fibrosis.
Oh my God, I think Grover sounds like he might have CF.
Oh, that is very important job.
Oh my God, he's coming back again?
Kelly works super hard, helping lots of people under her leadership. They made big plans and even got through some tough times like the pesky pandemic. I'm so
my God, he's running away again. Oh my God, this is a workout for Grover. Oh my God. You have a very active extended family, Kelly.
She helped get a very special medicine approved that makes life better for people with cystic fibrosis. Kelly, I am so proud of you, and I just can't wait for you to hear all about her adventure.
He's running. Oh my God, he runs around a lot. Oh my God, he's coming back. He's coming back.
It's going to be so much fun. Now, let's all settle down and put on our listening ears and get ready for a great time.
This has got to be it.
Take it away, Kelly!
Oh my God!
Goodness!
Wow. Oh my God! I did not expect to see Grover today.
Me neither.
Holy
wow!
Shit! I had no idea you guys were related. That's so sweet.
Well,
thank you, Grover.
If you're gonna pick someone from Sesame Street, you got to go with Grover. So
that's it. Kelly Grover, the CEO of Cystic Fibrosis Canada, which
we don't need to introduce anymore.
No, I know. But
Grover gave us all the details.
I feel like this has been a long time coming. We're so excited to have you on the show. And the timing of this is great because the day that this releases is the day that the second to last episode of Breathless is published. If you have been living under a rock and don't know what I'm referring to, Breathless is the latest podcast that we've been producing here at Snack Labs in partnership with CF Canada. And it's been a really amazing wild ride, and we're really stoked about how the show has panned out. And
if you haven't listened to it, go back. Start at episode 1. It's a nice journey. It's a little audio documentary journey with Jer and a lot of his experiences with CF and Trikafta and challenges and
that's why we wanted to have you on, Kelly, because we know that especially over the last couple of years, there's been a lot of big shifts, a lot of big changes, a lot of big wins for the CF community. But with those wins and with those shifts comes a lot of challenges, unforeseen challenges, maybe foreseen challenges, a lot of confusion. And so we're really excited to have an opportunity to sit down with you and talk to you about your work at CF Canada, and also what the future looks like for CF Canada. So Kelly, thank you so much for sitting down and joining us today.
Well, I'm thrilled to be here, and I can't even with that opening. I feel like I've really come home. We feel such a kinship with you guys, and we're thrilled to have been able to partner with you on Breathless. It's a really interesting time to be in cystic fibrosis, and I was trying to write my adjectives before I came on, and you're in such a high because people have such great joy and opportunity. You just talked about, like, we're in uncharted territory. We don't know. Does the joy last forever? What does it look like to age with CF? Does everyone, after they've been on it from some time, do they react the same way? So many things you don't know. And then there's a whack load of people that don't have Trikafta at all. And the feelings of, for those of us working on behalf of the community is just such great motivation to solve for that, but also just sadness because you've really got a very heterogeneous community now, and we didn't have that before. We were all driving in the same direction, and so it's like joy and we're not done, kind of the chutzpah to kind of get her done. Yeah.
Is it one of the things?
I want to come back to the "we're not done" piece, but before we get into that, just in case maybe there's someone who just kind of stumbled upon Sick Boy for the first time, aren't aware of my story, which has been spoken to at length on the podcast for the amount of years that we've been doing it. And maybe they don't know much about CF. Can you give us just like a sort of high level overview of historically, like what is CF? What is it known for? And one of the things that you said there that might stand out to someone is like, we're seeing people grow older with CF. Why is that? And what is, how does that differ compared to what CF looked like, say, 20 years ago?
Well, I know in the podcast, both of our scientific officers spoke at length about CF, and so I'm not going to do it justice. I'm gonna do the Grover Sesame Street version, so that I understand. But so CF is the most common fatal genetic disease. And Jeremie, you jump in, okay? Because if I'm going to do my version, and I don't have CF, but we always thought about CF, and people often have heard about cystic fibrosis, but they really think it's a lung disease, and it is. And a lot of times people have lung issues or respiratory issues, but it is a multi-organ disease. So what happens is, for Taylor and Brian and myself who don't have CF, we produce enough water through our cells that we can clear mucus. And for those that don't have that have CF, they aren't able to do that. So the mucus gets stuck in their external facing organs. So let's say their lungs, it gets sticky there. You get sick, which we all do now more often. The virus gets trapped in there. You get sicker. You get infection. Then it stays there. You get inflammation. You get infection. You get inflammation. And so there's wear and tear on the organs. And so for people who have more lung CF, the last chance for them, or last treatment has been a lung transplant. But other people have like major digestive issues because you get the sticky stuff in your digestive system. And so then you're taking enzymes to break down the food. And so putting weight on was an issue. So that's how it was. And for many people, I want to stress, it still is. There's other issues too. You've got a lot of sinus issues, and you have fertility issues as well, particularly for men. Fast forward. Go ahead.
No, you keep going. Yeah, you
fast
keep
going. Forward, prior to the pandemic, so 2019, 2020, we knew this new drug was coming, and there had been other versions of it before. I'm going to call it other versions, but it is it's a therapy that actually targets the root cause of CF. So it goes and it doesn't just deal with the symptoms, which all the drugs were doing. It goes to the root cause. And we knew about it in other countries, and we're seeing, I mean, was awful for our community. They're seeing great results in the US of people with CF. And so we fought very, very, very hard. And for a variety of very boring reasons, it took longer to get it to Canada. There were other policy issues happening. And we fought very hard, and we had it roll out 2021, I think 2020, 2021, and it rolls out through age groups. And so just this year, we've had approval for the 2 to 5 year olds. And so it's like, I hate when people do these like mind blows, but it really is. I mean, people within hours feel different. And Jeremie, you do talk about that, what it did for you physically. I think what we're seeing now is what it's doing to people emotionally. People thought they were told, right, they were going to die. So, and now they're like, oh, maybe I am going to die, but maybe I'm not going to die when I thought I was going to die. So, while their physical part of their body is getting better, their health is getting better. CF always brought a lot of mental health issues. It has a higher mental health incidence or rate than other diseases. But it, or I don't know if it's from other diseases, it has a high rate of mental health concerns, anxiety and depression. But now, people think, oh, you got the magic pill, that's it. But that we're seeing there's other issues coming out there as well.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where we're in. And that's why I was saying we're sort of in, like, we don't know.
Yeah.
Right. This was one of the things about in the whole, like, it took a long time to produce Breathless. And we like a big learning for me in that was that emotional mental health piece that you spoke about, Kelly, was sitting across the desk from Jeremie, and I did a lot of the writing on the series, and through that experience, I had to talk to Jer a lot about like how he felt, and I would write something down and go like, hey, I'm your best friend. I've known you for 13 years. We've talked about your CF at length, like 1,000 times. But like, I got to get this right, that I know what you're feeling. And so Jer and I would have these like really long conversations about how taking Trikafta has changed his thoughts around like some of the most important things in life that a lot of us take for granted. Like, for example, having kids was a big conversation, and how something like Trikafta has thrown this thing that Jer has had a 100% certainty of in terms of how he felt about that situation for his whole life. And then all of a sudden this drug comes along, and he gets on this drug and it has fantastic results for Jer. And now that has just like thrown him for this gigantic loop, and that on several different mental health topics about like how he feels about navigating the rest of his life, and the unexpected challenges that came with getting access to a life-saving drug, which I think is not something that a lot of people think too much about. They think 100% celebration, 100% yes, we're here, my life is better, and not about the unexpected challenges and lumps and bumps that you've got to work through.
Here's the interesting part about that. So you're right. The general population might not initially gravitate towards the thoughts of the challenges that come with that, because it is such an incredible positive win in my life personally, for me. And I'm speaking for me. and to be quite honest with you, like when I think back, Kelly, when I think back to the first dose of Trikafta that I took it right here in this chair on this set with these guys. And that moment, we recorded it. We put it out as an episode.
Anything for the views.
Yeah. Perfect content, right? And that's what I wanted to talk about, was just how much content we can get from this. That was an amazing moment. And I had CF clinic not too long after I had my first dose. And I remember maybe, I'm talking like maybe 3 or 4 weeks after I took my first dose. Okay. So it was only 2 weeks into taking it that I was starting to see dramatic differences in my physical capacity, my physical abilities, my physical well-being. Okay. I go into clinic and I'm riding the high. I am on cloud 9. It's incredible. And I get to clinic and they go, wow, look at that. Your lung functions from 50% to 80%. And I'm like, holy shit, that's, I mean, that to me, that moment right there is probably as exciting as winning the lottery. And they say, hey, look at that, your weight's up. You're actually we actually can't give you weight supplement anymore because you no longer qualify because you're starting to get fatty. And I said, whoa, guys, thank you. And then they said, okay, so your weight's up. That's great. You've been trying for that your whole life. Your lung function's up. That's great. You've been trying for that your whole life. And then they said, do you want to speak to the psychologist? Because we know that with this medication, it's probably, you might be looking at some like challenges. And I looked at them like they had fucking 9 heads. And I said, what are you talking about? And I'm good, brother. I'm on cloud 9. I'm amazing. I don't need to talk to anybody. I was still in this honeymoon phase of like, look how incredible it is that I can walk my dog up Citadel Hill and not get winded. And then fast forward like 3 or 4 weeks, and all of a sudden the honeymoon period kind of dissipated a bit, and it slowly started to dawn on me that, oh, wait a minute, there's, whoa, holy shit. I might live till I'm 70. Oh shit, I might have to think about retirement. Oh my God, I'm going to live long enough that like it would actually make sense for me to have a kid, and I don't feel weird about that idea as I used to before. And then I got flooded with these confusing feelings that come hot off the heels of this really amazing sensation and this big win. And so I'm speaking from the personal experience of one person with CF, because every single person who lives with this disease, every single person with this disease who's gotten access to Trikafta, they're all going to take it differently.
That was something that Paul Eckford said in our conversations. Yes, yeah. If you know one person with CF, you know one person with CF.
Now, if that's happening to me, that one patient out of the thousands of patients that have the access to that, it's hard for me to wrap my head around the confusion and the challenges that an organization like CF Canada is going to face coming off of a big win like that. And I mean that from the perspective of a slew of patients that are going to grow old. I'm talking from CF clinics that are not used to seeing their patients, reach their late 30s, their mid 40s, their up to their 50s, whilst also taking on the children from the children's hospitals and going, wow, now our numbers are like, we're being overwhelmed with patients at this point. I'm talking from like the public perception of what it means, what CF means now, because, for anybody who doesn't know this, and I think this does a really good point of kind of showing how something so great can also bring on a lot of these challenges. It was in 2024, this year, January, the Kids Wish website put out a statement that basically said, given the ongoing life-changing advances in cystic fibrosis, CF will no longer automatically qualify for a wish. Okay, good problem to have, but also from an optics perspective, what does that mean for the general population when they think about CF? They're going to look at that and maybe not consciously think, but subconsciously they're going to think, hey, they're cured, they're saved, they're good. Let's move on to another initiative. Let's move on to something else that's important. And I know through doing this work and through doing this podcast and through speaking with people like you, Kelly, the work is not done. This is not the time to go, okay, cool, you guys made it, let's move on. There's still a ton of work to be done. And so all of that is to say, yes, there's the personal challenges that we have as CF, but from an organizational standpoint, I'm so curious about like the biggest challenges that CF Canada has seen arise after the introduction of what is being coined this miracle drug.
Well, you guys just raised like 1,000 things, and I was like doing my best. I'm not a great, I am an interrupter, so I'm so proud that I just stayed still there. So the first thing I want to say is Jeremie really has articulated with all of you what his experience has been and what we loved and what I loved about doing the podcast is there are many more Jeremies out there who feel like they're alone. People who have CF often told us they felt isolated and alone. One, because they can't go meet other CFers if you weren't as active online. And they're taking this pill and they're like, oh my God, this should be the moment, right? And they're having some like, holy crap, I'm going to get old, or I'm going to do this, or I'm going to do that. So I am thrilled that people can hear and, kind of normalize, in air quotes, their experience and know they're not the only person having that. I'm really reminded of, did therapy years ago and somebody talked to me about change and how change goes into the good, but you're also shedding the past.
Right.
And so you really have to work with that of like, there is a humongous paradigm shift. And I'm just going to say, I'm so thrilled because Jeremie, you really articulate that beautifully for the community of what your experience was like, what your mother in the podcast, what your mother's experience was like with that. And so that's really important. Is CF is a community, and it's always been a community. It was built by families. It was supported by families. And now people are living with the disease and they really lean into each other. So that's what this podcast can also give voice to. In terms of, the biggest challenge, I'm not always like a Pollyanna, but I think it's not the most challenging time to be in. Certainly there's challenges and I'll speak to those, but we didn't have any medications for CF for like a gazillion million years here. And people have been dying very young. They're still dying too young. Our median age of survival is 37. And what that means is half of the people will not live to 37. So I think that people have said, there are some people that have said, you're done, you've got a cure. And that is important to quell those myths out there because we're not done. People who go on Trikafta are not age 2. They're 36 and they would have had the CF in their body for that long. So Trikafta is giving them a much longer, roadway to go, but they still have CF and CF still has done its damage. So it's getting out and reminding people of that message. And I'm like, my biggest challenge is people that don't have any new anything, right? That is the biggest challenge. So what we lean into is the fact, a couple like strengths we have. One, this is an organization that I have had the pleasure of leading for the last number of years, but this precedes all of us. People had the foresight to invest in specialized CF clinics. So we have the best and the brightest continuing to work. They're adapting the care plan, the clinical care model right now for this heterogeneity that we're talking about. I can't think of a better word for that. The variety of experience, I guess, of people. And we had people who funded to get the gene discovered here. So we are continuing to invest in research and we have clinical trials that come to Canada. So I feel like we're completely poised. But the biggest strength for success, but the biggest strength we have is we have a community that is so committed and deeply sticky in this best sense that you could be. These folks that already have Trikafta are not like, Sia wouldn't want to be you. They are like so leaning back in to say, we're not done till everybody has a solution. And so CF and the progress we've made hasn't been, there's many wonderful external partners that I'll speak to, but the success we've had has been from the CF community. And they have told us over and over again, they're not done. And so I think our work is to continue to partner effectively with the CF community, help leverage their voices. I mean, they're just amazing. This is an amazing, amazing community of commitment. And so I think our challenges are, how do we get solutions for those who have rare mutations that don't have anything right now? How do we ensure that we are pivoting so that we're looking at kind of the issues, if I can put them that the experiences you're needing, you're having now that you're on Trikafta. There'd be people who haven't thought about work, haven't thought about their finances. How are we supporting that kind of work? And so we are looking at how do we improve the financial burden of people living with CF? How are we looking at access to Trikafta? How are we building continued support mechanisms for people so that we continue to lean into the community? Because without the support of the community, we won't be able to go further. The last point I would say is there are many diseases that have gone before us who have had wonderful moments, and they continue the disease patient organization. They just have to pivot. And that's what CF Canada has done very well through the years of what's the most important thing that we need to focus on for our community, go all in, and then next. And that's where we're at now. We built a 3-year strat plan. It's short because we're in this shifting, I call it shifting sands. I'm not sure that's right, but uncharted territory, where we're doubling down on getting Trikafta available to everyone. Those that have Trikafta have a lot of provinces have an enormous financial burden. Then there's people who just or whether they have it or don't have it, face a big financial burden, and the care model needs to adapt. So we're in sort of like, how do we bring everybody kind of up to the same level playing field, and then start to look at what are the other things that folks like Jeremie are going to need from an organization such as ourselves. So it's exciting. It's challenging. We're a charity. Everybody's facing challenges post-COVID. Volunteerism is down, and fundraising is down, but nobody has the CF community, and that is our secret sauce, as I would say.
Kelly, in terms of like, I guess when I think of the challenge of some people, the majority of people who have access to Trikafta, we know that some people have received the medication and then for a variety of reasons have had to stop taking it. We know that there's a large percentage of, or a not non-significant percentage of people who don't have access to any treatments like that at this time. So in terms of like making sure that those people don't get left behind, and maybe like framing this in a more sort of hopeful way, like being at the forefront of like the state of the art in treatments and knowing what sort of research is coming down the pipeline. Are there signs of hope for getting people who don't have access to these types of medications? Is there like a sign of hope?
1,000%. So there are genetic therapies. So the CF Foundation in the U.S. has been able to have large, like humongous investments in research for a variety of reasons. They had invested in the company that founded Vertex, so they cashed out and had lots of money, which is a really, really great story for another day. And so they are really, they're investing in companies that are doing genetic therapies. And then we can bring those therapies to Canada. And we have a clinical trials network, which many organizations or diseases of our size just, like, it's kind of a bit of a coup that we have one, I would say. And it was built, again, number of years ago, so we can get those therapies here and try them out on Canadians, and other countries wouldn't have that opportunity. And so there definitely is hope for those folks. Also, a lot of those folks, Brian, could take Trikafta and would benefit from it. So we're pushing really, really hard right now on Health Canada, and what they need to accept is, so when like Jeremie has the most common mutation, or let's just take any other disease, if you've got a lot of people, you can do a large clinical trial, and that's been considered state-of-the-art evidence, best evidence. So when you have like an N of 1, so I may have the only mutation in Canada for this, for CF as a rare mutation, you have to use, I always go like this, like I'm in a petri dish. I don't know why I do this, but it's lab data. So they need in vitro data, and that is being tested in Canada at sick kids to determine if it, at the hospital for sick children, to determine if they're, if you have that mutation, does it seem that Trikafta would work for you? Okay. Is there a benefit? And in other countries, I forget what it's called right now because I'm on the podcast, but they, it's basically, try it. And if it works, we'll continue to, we'll pay for it as a funder. So our drugs are paid through provinces or through public systems or private systems. But the province would say, or the public system would say, it showed some indication of working. We're going to fund it for you, Brian, and we're going to see how it goes. And if it doesn't work, we're going to pull you off of it. But if it does, we're going to continue to fund it.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're pushing on both fronts. We want Health Canada to accept the in vitro data as acceptable, and we want the provinces to be paying for these things for these folks. And I believe in the great success we've had in advocacy over the last number of years, which was an enormous uphill battle, that we've got the strength to do it. And that we will see those folks get on Trikafta, and then it just narrows, it decreases the number of people that we can't help, and there will be some that we need to look at new therapies for.
So just to clarify for my understanding, so basically, Trikafta could work for a lot of these other mutations. We
Correct.
just don't know because we haven't done the testing on it yet, or in some cases haven't been able to test it. So it's we got to kind of check to make sure, to see if it does work, to prove it, I guess, in a sense.
It's a variety. We know in other countries they're funding it,
right,
and it works. So it's one, we need to accept that. But our model is set, and so they wouldn't have used clinical trial data for that to prove it. Okay. But our model at Health Canada is a bit dated. They would agree with this. And so what I find so frustrating for families, and I know one in particular, her son, it is possible he would benefit from Trikafta, and she is being told, but the system of approval is, not set up to look at data in this way.
Right.
I mean, honestly, you don't have to be a parent to feel that, oh my God, can you not change the system?
Yeah.
But we've had good conversations with Health Canada, and I know the manufacturer has the drug for rare mutation, proposal in with Health Canada. So we're doing everything we can do, and we'll know that, it's never fast enough, but we should know, by the fall where we are with that.
Yeah,
It's
it's always
really
been
interesting.
mind blowing to me that there could be medication of that could save someone's life or change someone's life in a significant way, and there's just barriers to access.
I mean,
it.
it's just
so fucking crazy.
it's just
I understand it.
Yeah,
but it's fucking
red tape,
crazy. Yeah.
tape that that exists because in lots of senses it protects people, and then in lots of cases it prevents people from getting better. And it's
it's oh my gosh, the inequities are numerous. And I just did an interview with the Current on CBC, and I mean, we're even in a luckier state than so many other countries. I mean, in South Africa, they have people flying to Argentina to purchase the generic and flying back. They're bulk purchasing.
Wow.
So, but we're not in South Africa. We're in Canada, and the inequities, we have a postal code lottery. So luckily for us, and it's because of CF Canada's work in the community, we fought very hard so every province would be funding it and every territory, and they are. So that's hallelujah. But the rollout is, Alberta went first. I don't remember. Let's say Newfoundland was last. I don't remember the order. So anyone listening, I'm not trying to pull that out. But if you have to wait and you're watching online and you're seeing, Jeremie spoke about Gunner, you're seeing all this great, exciting moments down, across the border, and you're sitting here waiting in your own country, in another province. Again, it's not ideal at all.
I'm curious.
It's an understatement.
I'm curious about, and maybe this is way too early to be asking this question, but as someone who is in the role that you're in, I'm sure that you have, your finger on the pulse as to what is happening in the world of CF treatment and the advancement of CF treatment. Trikafta is, I mean, it does incredible things. But again, it's not a cure. and you know, I'm not so much like asking about a cure, but I am curious, like, is there, with the success of Trikafta and what it's done for a lot of people in the community, is there any word about you know, upcoming or current studies surrounding new treatments for CF that push the needle even further than Trikafta have? And if so, what
Yeah.
are some of those, and what are you hearing?
So you'll edit this part out. I don't know if I'm the
Okay.
best to answer
Got
it,
it.
but I'm going to tell you what I know. So first of all, there's a, I'm going to call it a better Trikafta. Okay. Same company. This drug, I believe, I know is more effective than Trikafta, but I'm just trying to remind myself of the rollout. And I think it's in the next year, it'll go to the FDA in the US, which means we're about like 9 to 12 months after that when it comes to Canada. And that's even a better, and again, I'm not going to give you the stats, but just trust my words that it's better. In terms of the genetic therapies, I mean, the challenge, what I wanted to say is I know it's a great opportunity for us, but the challenge is that CF is a multi-organ disease. Whereas if you look at, they've used CRISPR technology, so the gene editing with sickle cell, which is a wonderful, wonderful story. But again, not a scientist, but they can go into like we have multiple organs and multiple different kinds of cells, so you can't just go one place and cut. I'm going to use my silly, simple language here. So we have challenges, but again. The investment is there and the intelligence is there and the motivation is there to get to like even better. So I believe we'll see it, but it's going to be a beat before we get to the gene, there are gene therapies coming through now, but till we get to like really, and I'm just talking a few years. I'm not like 3 to 5, but again, don't quote me on that because this is not my special.
Yeah, I mean, the reason I asked is because I've heard rumblings. There's a young woman who I've become friends with over the years who lives with CF, who I'm actually hoping to record with quite soon, and she said something to that degree where she said, you know, I've been on clinical trials for years. I was put on Trikafta at this date, and now I'm on another version that is quote unquote even better than Trikafta. And I remember when I read that, I was like, whoa, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Like that's so fascinating.
That I know for sure,
Yeah.
Jeremy. Like that I know for sure.
Yeah,
I just can't remember exact timeline, but I know it's not this year, but yeah.
Remember when we were talking to, and this is, you know, I don't have any other information this other than a vaguely recalled memory. But we spoke to somebody on the podcast. It was like right in COVID, 2020, 2021. He was a researcher. It must have been 2020 because it was before Trikafta was available to you, Jer. We talked to a researcher at Harvard, and we were talking about mRNA, and we were talking about mRNA in the context of COVID and the vaccine. And he was kind of talking about all of these, you know, potential applications for mRNA that were emerging now that mRNA was now being used in humans, and how this kind of like door had opened. And he had mentioned to us in the conversation that he had known at that time that there was some level of trial happening for a CF treatment using mRNA.
Dr. Bruce Zetter.
Bruce Zetter. That's right. Yeah.
Yep.
Just wanted to flex my memory on you
Yeah,
guys.
you got a good memory. You remember names.
Yeah.
I mean, one of the challenges you talked about, the challenge though, it just made me think of it, is keeping scientists in CF.
Yeah.
Right. So, and clinicians in CF. So that is already, so on the clinical side, some of the clinicians have told us that in the hospitals, they're like, yeah, you don't need another whatever nurse pharmacist because you've got Trikafta. So that's a challenge. So we're on that in terms of advocacy and drawing awareness. But in the pediatric hospitals, because the kids many children will get on Trikafta earlier, their life and how that looks is going to be so different than Jeremie's. So, and keeping scientists interested when that's a little easier because there's so much left to be done. But what I wanted to say was that's the challenge for us, but that is much like we can kind of push that out because we have so many adults just went on Trikafta, right? So we still have a very population that still would identify with their CF and be sick from their CF. But you can imagine, fast forward 10 years from now, let's say, even further, if a parent, like, let's take Jeremie's mom and dad. I don't know your dad's name, Jeremie, but if they were, I was going to use
his
Maxine.
name is Cobb. Unbelievably, yeah, Cobb. C-O-B. Actually,
like corn cob
is actually his name. And everyone calls him Cobb, but yes, Cobb.
He was never teased like I was teased with my last name Grover that I now own. But for them,
Kelly Grover
ever. That's really good. So listen, with your parents though, they got a diagnosis, and you said they didn't maybe handle it the best or whatever. As a parent, I actually listened to that and I thought, gosh, you're darned if you do and you're darned if you don't. It really is a pickle. These parents, though, are going to have a very different experience, right? They're not going to be, how do we still make them want to connect to the community and to us and know that we're there for them? What's the value proposition, to use like gross terms like that, but like what are going to be their needs? And so that's our job right now with our board to start thinking about, is like being in touch with what's happened in other countries, because they go ahead of us usually in the UK and the US, and we're always upset about that. But actually, it's a great opportunity for us to learn. So what are they hearing from their community? What are the needs? I think regardless of how you slice it, even with Trikafta, it doesn't stop being a fatal disease. So, continuing to talk about that, and my trail of thought has dwindled.
Kelly, how do you I guess from a personal standpoint, I guess I want to ask this question is, how do you leading as the leader of this organization grapple with the advent of Trikafta, or the access to Trikafta for people in Canada, which from a population standpoint, I would imagine feels like, okay, we've bought some time here from a population standpoint. And at the same time, from many individuals' standpoint, this situation is still dire. I kind of imagine that both things are true. Like, it's dire from an individual standpoint, but we've bought some time from a population standpoint. Like, do you think about that? And if you do, how do you approach that?
I honestly just like it's the almost, I mean, I'm never going to compare myself to somebody with CF, but it's literally like all of the different kinds of emotions Jeremie talked about when he went on Trikafta. That's kind of what we go through. There's what I don't think we do well. And I think about this a lot because my husband works in film and TV, and if they finish a show, they have a wrap party and they like really celebrate. They know how to go hard and celebrate their success. And we just turn our head and go, that was great. Next. So I think that actually is how we cope. I have personally and professionally found it really, really hard recently with people who aren't going to have access to Trikafta. Like, it won't work for them even if we tested it, and they don't feel any hope. I found that really challenging to sort of reconcile. Like Jeremie, let's say somebody like Jeremie, who is, having all the things we all have. Like, I didn't think I want kids. Now I want kids. I don't know if I want kids. But he feels a sense of optimism at times, whereas the other folks, I find that very challenging, and reminds me of where I was when I started the job of, I kept saying to people, we're going to get Trikafta here, and I believed it. I believe these folks are going to have a solution, but it's not going to come fast enough for some, and that really is hard. We had a young woman in her 20s die in Saskatchewan a couple weeks ago, and she'd had a double lung transplant. And I actually had I have a lot of moments when people die, but I was just really had a moment. We had a young man last year die in his early 20s. He had been involved a lot in our, he was profiled a lot and worked a lot on our behalf. And it's almost, you don't need reminders, but it does give you pause and gives the team like really the extra impetus to keep going. And I think I like the challenge not of people being sick and dying. I like the challenge of people saying, "Oh, you're done," because I'm like, I know we can turn that around and really leverage, our voice, but also the community's kind of like screw off. No, we're not. There's a chutzpah to this community, and I've used that before, but it's a real. They're so good at kind of sticking it to, like, think about it. It's a rare disease. It's a small population. Their voice is so much louder than many other organizations or any other diseases. And that's because they were parents. I think now what the challenge, actually, I just thought of an additional challenge. It's an opportunity, but how do we get the voices of folks like Jeremie? So we didn't, let's say, I'm just using Jeremie as an archetype, but like, the folks that are like in their 20s and 30s, their parents were their voices for many years with us, and that's who did the work. But we need to have the adults and the folks with CF, and the parents need to feel like they're a part of it. But the folks with CF didn't have an opportunity, and so the parents stayed involved. And so the pivot for us is to create space for everyone. And that's been an interesting place for us to navigate a little bit, because the parents are like, "Hey, I'm still here." And I'm like, "I know, and you're awesome, but I need Taylor to, like, I want to know what Taylor's experiencing." And that's been an interesting one to navigate. But I'm a parent, and I actually can really identify with where they're at and kind of giving them a voice to that. You never stop caring about your kid, no matter how old they are.
I just wanted to say, to your point about the wrap party and like the way that you perceive it, I believe it's in episode 5, which I guess as you're listening to this is coming out. It came out today. We drew a comparison to CF and Trikafta to kind of like the end of a war in the way that the war ends, and it's like this there's this celebration, but like the war has wreaked havoc, and there is like the reparation and the restoration process, which is enormous, begins when a war ends. And like there's so much more to just like turn your head and focus on. And I guess further to that, like the war isn't over, because like there's still people that can't access it. And so that whole piece like really resonates with me, and from you as an organization, from CF Canada as an organization, just going, great, what's next? We need like focus here.
Well, it's also, I think, I'm repeating myself, but actually the part that kind of keeps me up at night or like troubles me the most is that everybody doesn't see themselves right now in the CF community. So we had this before Trikafta with transplant folks feeling outside, even though they had a transplant because they had CF, and they were like, where am I in this space? I think now that's what those who have rare mutations feel like. They don't see themselves, and they only see us talking. We've changed this, but the community's talking about the aftermath, sort of like the Trikafta came. And so for me, it's the war came and created havoc, but it didn't even go over to the other folks, and they were still living in an impoverished state, So it's those folks, like they, you can only say so many times you're not going to leave you behind. We're not. But it's very, how can you not feel envy or upsetness, being upset when you're happy, but you're also not. And I know you've spoken to folks. I also think of all the people we've lost. I mean, I listened to the episode with John, and and learned a lot about Marika. And there's in Halifax, there's a family there who both their children died in their 20s from CF. Like, this is a devastating disease that has traumatized families, but they're still there kicking at the can to make sure everybody has a solution. You don't see that everywhere. I can promise you of that. So pretty special.
Folks, Breathless is the podcast coming at you from CF Canada. It is available now. The 5th episode dropped today. It's a tear jerker, so definitely get your tissues ready if you've been following the series. And if you haven't started yet, go give it a listen. You can find Breathless wherever you find your podcasts. And
it's a serial series, so go back and start with episode 1.
And Kelly, I mean, this has just been so fantastic. I've been wanting to have you on the show for years. I think you're just an incredible human. And I really appreciate you taking time out of your schedule to sit down and chat with us. And where can people stay up to date with what's going on in the world of CF Canada?
You can stay up to date on our website at cysticfibrosis.ca, and you can find us on Facebook and Instagram and LinkedIn.
Again, this was such a delight. And before we wrap things up, I also just want to give a shout out to Lorna, one of the amazing voices that contributed to Breathless. And even more importantly than that, I want to give a shout out to Mr. Saskatchewan himself, Lorna's father. Happy 100th birthday. You might hear a little bit about how much of a role he's played in her life, but also in the world of CF and CF Canada as a whole. So happy 100th birthday. God, that is a wild thing.
That's a crazy number.
Kelly, thank you. This has been a delight, and can't wait to have you on again in the future sometime. Well, guys, I love my mom.
Okay.
But if my mom died tomorrow,
oh God,
I would probably send an email to Kelly and say, "Will you be my new mom?"
Oh, okay.
She just seems like the coolest mom.
She does, but she's young. She's like a cooler, older sister.
Thank you. Yeah, that's what I meant. Well, that's what I meant. When my sister dies,
yeah,
I'm gonna say, "Will you be my new sister?"
Yeah,
it's off-putting when you start a sentence with, "I love my mom, but if she died tomorrow,"
yeah,
like it really sounds like you're going. Yeah, I thought.
Well, people die, Taylor.
I thought you were going to a dark place.
And people who've listened to Breathless are aware of that.
I don't mean that death is dark. I mean that the way that you would feel about your mom. It sounded like the way you would feel about your mom's death would be dark.
I love Kelly, but I wish my mom was Grover.
Yeah,
Grover the puppet.
Who introduced this episode. Thank you, Grover, by the way. Thanks for reaching out. So listen, as we spoke about CF this entire podcast, I figured in the wrap up we would do a little bit more CF talk, but talk about someone in the CF world that I don't think many people today are super familiar with. And kind of like he's sort of like a CF like legacy. Controversial CF legacy.
How did you come about this guy?
I don't know. I probably Googled like famous people with CF at some point or something. I don't know. But I've known about Bob for a long time. So this is really fascinating. This human is so interesting, and I wanted to give you guys a little sort of like history lesson on the life of the late Bob Flanagan.
Can you just clarify? Is he famous because he had CF? Like his shtick was like CF related, or no?
So we'll get into it. So Bob was a performance artist. And he was kind of a prolific, very well-known performance artist. His name was Bob Flanagan, and CF played a really big role in his art. So Bob Flanagan was born in December 27th, 1952.
So he was like the mid-1900s version of you.
Yeah, kind of, except way more famous. Way more.
Okay. But like an artist that like CF influenced the work that they did.
100%.
Yeah.
He was born in New York. Now, again, 1952. Okay. So 6 months old, he was diagnosed with CF. 1952, life expectancy of CF.
2.
Very, very,
Very
low.
low.
Like,
Literally, that is the
think
number I could find. Very low.
yeah, I think
I think
the expectation was if they lived a year, that'd be great.
Yes, that's right. So he was born at a time where if your baby made it to 3 years old, the medical community, we're going to go, whoa.
I don't think
That's
I think
wild.
digestive in doing like research on some of like the technical aspects for breathless, if I'm recalling correctly, I think digestive enzymes, which is like what you rely on every day, and even now, even after you've been on Trikafta for 2 years, rely on to digest all of your food. I don't think they came out or were available in pill form until maybe 3 or 4 years after he was born.
So the people with CF at that time didn't even really grow old enough to like experience really bad coughs.
Yeah. So that, I mean, well, if you listen to Breathless, you'll find this out, but essentially before digestive enzymes were a thing that people could take, which came out sometime in the 50s, mid to late 50s. Yeah. CF, we know CF is a lung disease, but at that time, most people didn't get to experience it as a lung disease because they died of malnutrition.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And then the digestion thing kind of advanced, and people got older, and their coughs were nasty like that. And now Trikafta, and our coughs are
more like mine.
You got that Zoolander cough.
I think I'm getting the black lung, Bob.
So
soundbite.
Flanagan's childhood and adolescence were marked by frequent hospitalizations, rigorous treatment regimens, and constant physical discomfort, as one might imagine, being born in the 50s with CF. Despite these challenges, Flanagan pursued education and creative endeavors with determination. He attended California State University, where he studied literature, and later moved to LA. His battle with CF was not just a background aspect of his life, but it became a central theme in his artistic work. Now, again, I will state, he was a very well-known performance artist. If you're not familiar with like the idea of performance art, it's it is vast. It's oftentimes really like, if you do know performance art, you probably know it because of the weirdness of some performance artists. So like performance art would be like visual art that you look at that is being performed sort of IRL, like right there in front of you. So like an example would be like, you know, I think I saw one where it was like a woman sitting in like a public place, like Times Square or something. And the performance art piece is she's sitting at a table. There's one other chair, and just passersby, just anybody on the street is welcome to come and sit with her, and they maintain eye contact for however long that person decides to want to do it with the artist. And like the artist, their whole thing that they've worked on is to not show any signs of any sort of like emotion. So it's just a blank face. And
I know the
you're not
person,
going to make them laugh. You're not going to, stuff like that.
I know the thing that you're referencing. It was like 2 or 3 years ago, something like that. And I believe it was like there was a thing around it where one of the interpretations of what it was like to capture like the range of reactions that humans have to a person who's like inanimate, for lack of a better word, that just like sits there, and people would like give her a kiss on the cheek or hug her or punch her in the arm, or
that
like,
was it.
Or like
you could do whatever you want.
You could do whatever you wanted to her.
Yeah.
And
that's right.
And it was
and it started to escalate to people like abusing her.
Yeah.
And that was the whole piece of art. It was like, hey, here's the art. Like, how do we as humans just treat each other when it's carte blanche?
You know, it's really interesting how there's like a spectrum of performance art where like somebody who's just starting out and maybe like doesn't have like the artistic vision, but like kind of wants to get into performance art. It's just kind of like an excuse for someone to do weird things,
go extreme
in public, and like more or less get away with it.
So Bob, here's a photo of Bob. handsome fella. And very small man, very, very petite man. But another big part of Bob's life was that also played a role in his art was his affinity for BDSM. So bondage, domination, sadomasochism. That's it. Bondage, domination, sadomasochism. So if you don't know what BDSM is, it's basically like self, sort of bondage and sadomastic acts that typically are, typically done in a form to spark, arousal. So
And in a pop culture understanding, it would be like, people getting tied up in
whipped and tied
dungeons
up and like piercing your nipples and
Not necessarily sexual though.
I think there's a strong
there's
sexual
a strong
connotation.
sexual connotation, but it also, yeah, you're right. Like it isn't necessarily sexual, but it is a subculture of like within the realms of like sex clubs and sex dungeons and stuff like that. It's very erotic.
Right. Mostly known for the sexual nature of it. However, not necessarily.
Yeah, some people are into
sexual.
BDSM for, well, we'll find out here, for like therapeutic reasons. Now, so here's a beautiful photo of Bob. And then here's another photo of Bob that, is going to have to be blurred out. So that's a wonderful photo. Well, why don't you guys tell me what you see here? That's Bob.
Wow. Bob has he has one nipple that looks like it's just normally pierced. He looks like he's got something extreme going on with his right nipple.
It's a naked man. We're
a
looking
naked
at
man, radically pierced nipples, and the big part is he's nailing his foreskin to a block of wood.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the standout piece for sure.
Yeah. So that's Bob. And so like, again, Bob's art was very tied into BDSM, like we just saw there, but also CF played a huge role. And he became quite famous for his performance art that was surrounding these types of subjects. Now, he ended up getting in a relationship with a woman named Cherie Rose. Now, Cherie Rose was also quite famous at the time. She was an artist and a photographer. Here's the two of them together. And they both had a personal and a professional relationship. Rose played a crucial role in documenting and collaborating on Flanagan's performances. Their relationship included elements of, like we said, BDSM, which Flanagan used as a form of pain management and artistic expression. This aspect of his life and work allowed him to explore themes of control, endurance, and the body's limits, providing a counterpart to the helplessness often associated with chronic illness.
I mean, he really didn't have to do all of this stuff because he was kind of engaging in a form of BDSM just by having CF.
Well, so again, he's
hot take, Brian. How do you feel about that?
Yeah,
Jeremy?
yeah. Again, he's taking the BDSM to blend it with the chronic illness, to like compare and contrast, and and also used it as like a form of like pain management and sort of therapeutic kind of release. So so in terms of that, in terms of like art as a means of coping, which is like kind of what I do with CF, with the podcast, right? It's
Totally,
like, it's just a little less like nail my dick to a block of wood and a little more talk my face off.
I mean, sometimes you metaphorically do that on the show.
Yeah. So Flanagan used his art to express his experiences and confront the harsh realities of living with CF. His performances, writings, and installations often dealt explicitly with pain, suffering, and the body's fragility. Through his work, Flanagan sought to reclaim control over his body and his suffering, turning the passive experience of illness into an active artistic statement. Now, he has quite a few like sort of memorable, prominent pieces that were published. One is called Visiting Hours. This is actually really cool. So one of Flanagan's most impactful works was the installation Visiting Hours at the Santa Monica Museum of Art. The piece was designed to resemble a hospital room, complete with medical equipment and a bed where Flanagan would spend hours performing. This setup allowed visitors to witness the daily realities of living with CF, bringing an often hidden and personal struggle into the public eye. The installation highlighted the invasive and relentless nature of CF treatments, from respiratory therapy to medication routines.
Mm-hmm.
There's another one that's called Sick, and this is actually a documentary. So Sick, the life and death of Bob Flanagan, super masochist.
Dude, his legs look exactly like your legs used to look like.
Yeah, not now.
You know what I think I'm gonna do? How do you guys feel about this?
Doing
And
squats.
not to like break the fourth
Also,
wall
just,
here
just,
too much
just,
and talk
just for the
about
people listening, for this, we're looking at the poster of the movie, and I actually love this photo. It's Bob. He's got a cape on, but the cape is like a hospital gurney.
yeah.
He's wearing a stethoscope around his neck. He has a mask on his face, and there's a Band-Aid covering his penis because underneath the Band-Aid, his penis is exposed and
Chained to something?
tied to the end of his penis is a
weight.
chain, and the chain goes down between his legs to his ankles, and there's a weight attached to it.
Yeah.
So he's just doing it. He's doing his.
Dude, Bob was fucking out there.
he was fucking gnarly.
So
yeah.
do you think that I should use that picture, replace Bob's head with your head for the thumbnail, and then put Kelly
Yeah.
Grover with her arm around you?
I was gonna say yes, and then I remembered that Kelly's on this episode, so no.
Yeah. Do you like
Good,
guys?
good
I think
creative discussion.
I
though.
think this is why we separated out these episodes
Yeah,
from the
yeah.
other episodes when
I
we were doing
remember.
Feel Good
Yeah,
Friday.
but now we're back together.
So
Yeah.
this was a documentary by Kirk Dick, which captures Flanagan's life with CF and his use of masochistic practices as a form of pain management and artistic expression. And the film offers an intimate look into Flanagan's medical treatments, showing the grueling and often painful procedures he endured to manage his condition. I actually want to play for you a little snippet. I believe this is from Sick, but it's a little song that Bob wrote.
Are we allowed to?
I think so. Yeah, I think.
I know this song.
Yeah.
Wow.
So yeah, he obviously also had like a really wicked sense of humor, which I fucking loved about the guy. But another big thing that he did that he was quite well known for was his like poetry and his writing. And his prose and poetry dealt heavily with his experiences of illness and pain, obviously. He had a poem called Why, and in Why, Bob explores his motivations for engaging in masochistic practices. He lists a variety of reasons, including physical pleasure, emotional release, and a rebellious response to the pain and suffering caused by his CF. And here's a little excerpt from that poem. Because it feels so good, because it gives me an erection, because it makes me come, because I'm sick, because there was so much sickness, because I say, fuck the sickness. Dude, the guy was a badass.
Do you
I love it.
like when you
Oopsie, sorry, whoops.
when you
Got a cough. Can you please leave the room?
do you like do
Go
you
ahead,
do
Go
you
ahead.
do you identify with a lot of like the things that Bob talks about?
Sorry, I just let her finish. I think she's...
This is the listener that wrote in and said they fucking hate the soundboard. It's probably from moments like this.
That's really long.
Yeah, dude. I mean, you know what? I love it. Like, here's the one thing I will say. I totally get the way that he used physical pain as a way to like manage his pain. I had a thing. I and I still do this to this day. So,
The foreskin thing.
no, that's gone.
Okay.
That was that, and that wasn't by. I didn't do that. I actually had a professional remove it when I was a teenager. But
Right.
whenever I would get out of the hospital from a hospitalization, or whenever I would land like a gig, like a speaking gig, which is separate, but we'll just stick with the hospitalization. Every time I would get out, I would go and get a tattoo. And there's something about like, because the pain of being in the hospital is not just the physical pain. There is that happens, but there's also this like emotional pain that comes with it. There's this like spiritual pain, this psychological pain. And so going and getting a tattoo right after that, every single time that would happen was like this sort of cathartic release of like, all right, now I'm in control of the pain. Like I'm going to experience pain, but it's on me. And by the end of this pain, I'm going to have something fucking that I cherish.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like this, I don't think I've even like told you guys that, but it's like it was this sort of personal, I don't know, this personal like form of managing this experience in a way that only really made sense to me. And then when I look at Bob's work, I'm like, yeah, dude. Yeah. I think
that's like, I think a lot of people can find like a relatable experience. Like obviously this is very different, but like, you know, I find that, that if you can inflict some type of like manageable, controllable, like pain on yourself, like it puts everything else that you can't control into a different frame. And like, so for me, I go, okay, obviously I have no idea what your experience is like or what Bob's is like, but you know, I can go out and, you know, put myself through hell and back on my bike when I'm training or racing.
Dude, the gym
and like,
is kind of similar to that
and
now.
by comparison to that, the things that I don't have control of, like the woes, like the ups and downs of like, of like running a business or family life or financial stress, like those things are
or vicious masturbation, like
right. Those things are less controllable.
Raw dick.
But because I can put myself through this like controllable pain or things that I decide to do, then it makes everything else. It dulls everything out. It dulls the extremes of the other stuff that I can't really control.
I feel like there's part of it is like it's more, there's almost like a logic to it where it makes sense to experience pain in that situation that makes you feel like pain makes sense again. And I know what you mean, Jared, because when like the first most emotional, like the first event in my life that changed my relationship to the emotional range of pain that I could feel was when I lost my friend Mary Beth when I was 16. And like that was the first like significant loss that I experienced, and I realized what it felt like to hurt at a new level. And when I was sitting in school, you know, in the weeks after that, I started carving her number in hockey into my hand with like a pen. Yeah. And it's like scarred and scabbed.
Yeah. It looks awful
to this day. And like that was, I felt, and like in the moment I had no idea why I did that, but I knew it felt good. It felt like when I was scratching at my skin and it hurt, I understood why it hurt. But like when, you know, like when she wasn't there and I hurt, like there was no way to like fully understand that. And so it felt like I could make sense of the pain.
Guys, we should as a group, we should get together and like fucking start doing BDSM to each other. I think you guys will like it.
Okay. I mean, like, I feel like
now that you put it this way,
I feel
like you've got the tools.
Yeah, I might have a tool or two.
Guys, there's a nice little.
I had both.
We got a leather mask right here.
Yeah, the mask is up there. I'll get both my nipples re-pierced.
There's tongs here. I think the tongs have a sharp side to them.
I have my nipple pierced.
So I had both my nipples and my belly button pierced. You want to fucking?
I kind of want my belly button pierced.
It's great. It's a great piercing.
Yeah,
it looks great, and it's also it takes people back. They're like, whoa.
Did you have a dangly one?
I had a barbell, and I just had a barbell. I think I had a hoop for a minute. And then I was like,
dangly ones make me squirm a little bit.
I think I want a dangly one.
Want to be careful with that. So this is how I want to wrap this up. I want to show you guys. So here's the other part of why I love Bob. I've always, since I can remember, had an affinity for art that made me uncomfortable.
Art Zuka.
The opposite of that. Actually, that makes me uncomfortable, so I do love it. Yeah, like art that really makes me uncomfortable. So like watching a film where by the end of that film, I'm like, oh, God damn it. I never want to experience that again. I love that feeling. There's some music out there that makes me feel really uncomfortable. And I love it. That's why I love horror. Visual art. I love stuff that just makes me like, oh my God. Like it's sort of like, it's scary. It's kind of gross. So I think that's one of the reasons why I immediately just thought so highly of Bob. And again, Bob, when did Bob die? I don't think I was like ever old enough. I found Bob when I was like in university. He died in 1996. So I was way too young. Never like, I found out about him long after he was dead, but I loved everything, seeing all the stuff that he had done. There's one thing that he did that still to this day makes me feel so fucking uncomfortable. And I do not like 9 Inch Nails. I know that they have a massive fucking following. But I don't like their music.
Sorry, we're talking about the band, not the things that he was putting through his foreskin.
I love those. But so I don't like their music, and their music makes me feel uncomfortable, but not in a way that I enjoy. I'm not a big like industrial metal guy, but they made a music video, and Bob Flanagan was the
metal.
That's what it's called. Industrial.
I'm sure
metal.
it is.
Is that why they were named 9 Inch Nails? Like nails are.
I don't know. Maybe. Yeah, I don't know.
Industrial, I guess.
I always thought about it as hand nails, but
no, it's definitely nails.
Okay.
Yeah. So this music video they hired Bob to be the subject of the video.
Oh, he's in the video.
Oh yeah, and it is
shocking.
The music video I fucking love.
I think I've seen
the
this,
music
actually.
video is like almost it's a sequel to Hellraiser, one of my favorite horror movies of all time, which also fully surrounds BDSM.
In a chair with a bag on his head. Or
Oh,
something like
so here's the thing. I'm going to play it for you guys. We cannot play this on YouTube. This will not be played. Also, can't play the music on the audio version of the podcast. So we'll talk over it. We'll leave that in the audio version. But in the YouTube version, just go Google the video and then come back. Okay.
Yeah.
So here we go. 9 Inch Nails music video with Bob Flanagan. So obviously very dark. And I'll talk through what we're seeing here. So
Very industrial.
Wait, what's this song called?
A lot of metal.
I'll find the song. So a lot of like confusing dark shots. It's all black and white, and we see the lead singer singing. He's in like a cage. He's trapped in a cage, and again, it is very industrial. There's a lot of like moving parts of machinery. And now we come into this like torture chamber that Bob walks into. He's wearing a suit, and it's like he's familiar with this place. It's like his happy place. He's carrying a rose. He stacks the rose, picks up a candle, and he's about to like commit this ceremony that he's used to doing. So he's got this weird effigy, like what do you call that?
Like an altar?
An altar that he's created.
Altars are weird.
Happiness is Slavery is the name of the song. So Bob sets up his altar. He starts to undress. He takes off his jacket, neatly folds it. Again, this is all very ritualistic. He's done this before. Takes off his shirt, folds it, places it on the jacket, takes his pants off, not wearing underwear, going full commando. And now he's butt-ass naked, which is why you probably won't find this on YouTube. Goes over into the mirror. You can see his piece. Well done, Bob. And now he's looking into his reflection, and he just disappears in it.
As soon as you said that, Haley turned around and started looking.
So now he's ceremoniously cleansing and cleaning his body before he gets into the thing. We get a nice shot of him rubbing his dick. Again, not going to find this on YouTube. You can find it on Vimeo.
Again, folks, not on YouTube.
So now he lays onto this hell-like surgery table.
It looks like a big table that's kind of like a big bear trap.
Yeah, there's and now the table basically comes online. So it has a mind of its own. It's a machine.
Oh God.
His hands are strapped in, and out of the hand straps come IVs that shove into his veins in his hand. And the IVs are made of wires, like metal coil wire.
And
Guys,
I gotta believe that a lot of this was actually
a lot of this is
happening
actually legit.
to
Yeah.
him.
So now a claw comes out. It's like 3-clawed pincer, and it just grabs and pulls on his skin, and
yeah.
he's coming. Like
it
grabs
grabbed
his
his
balls.
balls.
Okay,
Okay.
literally grabs his balls, pulls on his balls.
Oh my God.
It's so extreme.
Oh my God, this is so extreme. Oh
Grabs
my
his-
God.
grabs
no,
his head
no,
and
no.
stretches it. Oh my God, dude.
And guys, if you forgot about who the interview was with at the beginning of the show, that was Kelly Grover, the CEO of Cystic Fibrosis Canada.
And then it disembowels him. So it puts a hole into him, pulls his guts out,
Oh my God.
and he's
Okay, yeah.
jizzing away. He's
This
loving it.
Really does.
Drills a hole into. I mean, this is so
Okay.
extreme.
Yeah. Yep.
All right,
This makes me feel uncomfortable.
We'll wrap it up there. So,
Yeah.
so for the people that were watching on YouTube,
We didn't tell
a
them the name.
literal 5. Oh, right. It's called Happiness Happiness in Slavery. Not a description, but just a one word.
Man, it's crazy.
That's too many words.
because-
One word.
What is that?
Yeah. One word to what you just witnessed.
Shocking.
Yeah,
dude.
shocking
Yeah, I
is the
love it.
only word.
I fucking love that.
It's
music
crazy
video, dude.
because they made that as a music video, but that looked more like a live leak
Yes.
video.
Yeah. It's pretty extreme.
Artistic live leak.
Yeah.
I'll give you a couple of words. Raw penis, disembowelment, and jizz.
Although we didn't
wow.
see any
you
of
don't
that.
see the jizz, but you can tell. So that right there
Thank you, CBC,
is
for
our
your support.
We shouldn't have brought up any of those people during this.
maybe let's bleep that whole thing out. That is our tribute to the late, the great Bob Flanagan. God rest his soul, or if he's down in hell, I hope he's having a good time, because he would.
He'd love it down there.
Yeah, he'd be having
Yeah.
a way better time down there. I'll tell you that right now.
Yeah.
And I'm sure I'll see him down there.
I don't know though, guys. I like to think of my heaven as a place where you can do whatever you want that makes you feel
Including
I suppose you're right.
good.
I suppose you're right.
BDSM.
Yeah.
Although you can't suck your own dick in heaven.
Why?
Jesus couldn't do it, and the other disciples could, and so he doesn't allow it.
Right.
I wrote a 1-act play that got published, produced at Acadia University, and it was all about that. Not many people know this, but I do. So anyway, Bob Flanagan, God rest, Satan rest your soul, and folks, again, Breathless. The final episode is coming out next week. The episode that came out today, Jesus Christ, buckle up. It's get your tissues. I'll say that much. And thank you so much for everyone supporting the podcast. It really does mean the world to us. And we would love for you to go check it out if you haven't already. Thank you, Kelly Grover, for having such a lovely conversation with us. So glad to have you on the show. Thank you to Grover for for Kelly's cousin, first cousin, for introducing Kelly. That was very sweet of you, Grover. And thank you for tuning in to Sick Boy once again. If you want to support the podcast, head on over to the Discord channel. You can find the link in all of our show notes. And if you want to support the podcast further, leave a rating and a review, and make sure you're following the podcast on Spotify and Apple Podcast and whatever audio app you have on your phone. Just follow on all of them. Yeah.
And let us know how on Sick Boy, on our Instagram and on YouTube comments and stuff, how you're feeling about Breathless. We would really love for you to go over and take a listen. Tell us how you feel. And if you're into BDSM.
Yeah. Tell us how hard you come when you have your balls.
If you're into
pulled by
BDSM
a
and you
rod.
want to be a guest on the show, you're going to want to go over to Turn
Another
Me
show.
On.
Yeah. Different show.
And be a guest on that show. But if you want to be a guest on our show for any other reason, go to sickboypodcast.com and fill out the guest form.
Thanks again to CBC, to Jeff Lonis, and everybody else who helps make these shows possible. We love you all and
That's it.
couldn't do it
Yeah.
without you.
Yeah. Thanks again, CBC. I hope this one didn't push
The limit.
the limit too far.
I don't
Hey,
think
man.
it did.
Bob was all about pushing those limits. And so I'm just trying to do a little bit of Bob. Okay, folks, that is it for this week.
I'm Brian.
I'm Taylor.
And I'm Jeremie, and this is Sick Boy.
I mean, we didn't make that music video.